Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, Billie Tarascio, today joined by modern law attorney Laura Chapman. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So excited to have you here and to let our people know you a little bit more, get to know a little bit about you and how you like to practice, what types of clients are a good fit. So, what brought you to law school?
So when I was younger, I had my first child, and her dad and I were not married, and we had hired an attorney to help us navigate the process, and it went wonderful. Like her dad and I got along, but we still just didn't know how to put things on paper. And so we worked with a lawyer and got everything set up, and so that really kind of piqued my interest. I was in college at the time, and it kind of put me on a path of wanting to go to law school and look into family law.
So from day one, you knew you were going to law school to become a family law attorney.
I wasn't certain, but it always like was in the back of my mind. And so then when I was in law school, I joined like a bunch of different clubs to see what areas I liked, and I just naturally gravitated to family law.
I feel like some of us do, like you kind of got to be called
Yeah,
because it's different. Like it's so personal, it's so intense.
yeah.
So you really have to kind of be like part social worker, part lawyer, I feel like.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like it can be super emotionally draining or exhausting. And sometimes it's like this area is really specialized. It's kind of like being a teacher. I feel like you have to be like a special kind of person to be like an elementary school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be in it because you like it, not just for the money or anything like that.
Right. That would be torture. I would be terrible elementary school
Yeah.
teacher. Like you have to have certain gifts. And the same thing is true for family law. People really like your temperament and really describe your temperament as one of the things that they like most. How would you describe your temperament?
Uh, I I feel like I like to look at things from all sides. So I tend to probably be more even keeled because I'm always like, I get your position, but let's look at it from this way, or how can we make this work? And so I kind of look at it as a puzzle and how we can make our client the most happy, try to get the most favorable outcome with the pieces that we have.
So today you've now been practicing family law for almost 10 years.
Yes.
Has all of that time been here in the Valley?
Yes. Yep.
So you know the system, you know the judges, and I think that that is really clear to clients when you show up in court because yes, you're calm and even keeled, but you bring a confidence that clients absolutely love. Where do you think that confidence comes from?
Probably just experience, like mainly practicing in Maricopa County, because you do learn the system, you learn the judges. Like, as you know, Maricopa County gives you the most truncated time out of any county in Arizona. So you have to know, like, you only have this much time. You have to prepare for this. You know that the judges aren't going to put up with that. So I feel like just knowing those little nuances and having practiced almost probably 95% of my cases in Maricopa County helps with that.
Okay, so what the other 5%, which counties have you practiced in?
The most major one other than Maricopa would be Pinal County.
Mhm.
And then I've done a handful in outlier counties. I did Flagstaff. I can't remember the county name. And then I've also traveled up to Payson.
Mhm.
And then I think I had one in Tucson as well.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
and Pinal.
always interesting to go into the other counties. And I think it really depends on the case. Like if it's a, if it's not a hugely hotly contested case, being in another county is no big deal. But if you're in a hugely hotly contested case, it can be a little uncomfortable to not know the system quite as well.
Exactly. I just recently was assigned a case in Sierra Vista,
Hmm.
and thankfully, one of our attorneys, Lauren,
Hmm.
primarily practices in Pima County. So I
Hmm.
was able to reach out to her and ask her if she had any tips or tricks for that county. And she had a lot of information that was super helpful. So being with this firm, it's been so refreshing to have other attorneys to pick from and get tips and advice from as well.
Absolutely. So tell me about what do you like about working at Modern Law?
Well, that that right there, just having so many resources like at our fingertips, it's great that there's so many attorneys that come from different areas of law too. Like Gail, she comes from civil litigation, so that's awesome to have her background as far as different civil rules that might not be as frequently used in family court, but still apply.
Right.
Um, yeah, and just having the collaborativeness of just being able to bounce ideas off of other people too.
Yeah, it's a deep bench. There's a lot of really diverse attorneys who are very experienced, and I really appreciate all of their input and their ability to kind of collaborate and their willingness to support one another. I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that the Slack system that we use, like how we just have it up in the background. And if somebody has a quick question, like family law and juvenile are super closely related. And now having Ruby here with all of her juvenile experience is great. And so we can just ask each other quick questions. It's so helpful.
So you've spent your entire career as a working mom. You went into law school with a baby or with a child. Tell me what has that been like?
It was tricky at first. So when I started law school, I had a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I started part-time. Thankfully, the school that I attended had a program, and then I was easily able to ramp up to full-time and graduate in 3 years. But it was a balance to study, parent, and it was difficult at first, but with support and finding the right jobs that also supported a flexible schedule was very integral to being able to get to where I am now.
Were you working and a mom and in law school?
The first year I did not. I was just school and mom. And then after that, I worked part-time and went to
Wow.
school full-time. Yeah,
Wow. That's
it
a
was,
lot.
it was.
Most people in law school have neither a kid nor a job, especially the first year in law school. It's a very, very demanding year. So you must have excellent skills at time management.
I like to think so, but I think that was the true test of it. And law school, I mean, is a beast of its own. And so just trying to navigate how I needed to study for that was learning something new too, but
So different from undergrad.
very different. Yeah, I was not expecting how different it would be.
What types of cases are your most favorite?
I like full dissolutions, like start to finish. I like looking at all the pieces, kind of like I talked about earlier. I like to see what we're working with and then try to see how we can make everybody somewhat happy. I will never forget one of my first times in mediation or ADR. Somebody said the perfect agreement is where both parties walk away unhappy because that means they both compromise. So I try to always like keep that in the back of my mind and use it when I'm speaking with clients and stuff to help facilitate agreements. But I feel like dissolutions, when you're at the start of it, that's when you can kind of map it out how you see that it should go. And then, of course, everything can blow up. You just never know. So then just adapt to what happens. But those are my favorite type of cases.
Got it. And then do you have certain personality types that you click with and those that really aren't the best fit for you?
Um, Not really. I usually can find something to relate to with all my clients, because in family law, a lot of times we're dealing with children.
Mhm.
And so I can relate to them from the parent aspect. Again, family law, divorces. I've been through a divorce, so I can, and also my work history, obviously 10 years only in family law. So I can always try to find something to relate to them about.
That's wonderful. I find another reason that family law attorneys burn out is when they can't figure out a way to connect with their clients. And
Mhm.
because it's a lot, right? Your clients are going through a lot. And so you have to stay really non-judgmental and supportive all the time, which is a difficult role to ask someone to play, in addition to, oh, and make sure you never forget a deadline, know the law, apply the legal analysis. Like it's a difficult role.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And sometimes clients need a little bit more because of all the emotion and things that they're going through at the time. So we just have to also be patient and know that sometimes even though it's not necessarily our job or what we should be doing, they just want to vent for a minute or something like that. So just really being patient with clients has been something that I've learned to just adapt to and not necessarily cut them off or tell them that's not my job. I try to give them resources like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. How can I help you with that? And point them in the right direction so they're not wasting their attorney's fees on me when they could be using it in therapy or
Right.
reaching out for counselors for their child or something like that. So I just try to help them as best I can.
Switching gears a little bit, how have you seen the practice change post COVID? And do you think that those changes have been positive or negative?
I have seen a lot more, obviously virtual appearances. I think that for the most part, they've been really positive. A lot of hearings can be done virtually now, so it's saving clients a lot of money with travel to and from court. But I do feel like certain hearings have kind of lost their ability to do what they were intended to do, like RMCs, resolution management conferences. We used to have to go in person an hour before, meet with the other attorney.
Mhm.
And I think like 50% of the time we would reach some agreements, if not a full agreement. And
Mhm.
there's always that urgency when you're at the court. Like there's a
Right.
sense of, oh, we could be done. And I think for resolution management conferences, that's just gone out the window now. Like it's just, this is more of a scheduling conference. Let's just see where we need to go. Um, but as far as another benefit is just the accessibility that clients now have to us, because we're mostly in front of a computer instead of running from a meeting or to the courthouse. So we can look at emails faster. We could schedule a quick Zoom. I like the share file where clients can just have access to upload us documents. So I think it's really forced us to embrace technology more, which
Mhm.
I like. It's
Mhm.
super helpful.
But you bring up a really good point. When you have fewer in-person contacts, it does or it can kind of erode relationships or collegiality between
Mhm.
lawyers. Like there's something different about writing a snarky email versus having a conversation. So it's a good point.
Yeah, I do. And same things with ADRs, like those used to all be in person.
Mhm.
And now I think they're going back to where it's a choice where you can do
Mhm.
virtual or in person. But
Mhm.
I always felt like those were more successful in person too, because
Mhm.
you're there, there's some skin in the game. The
Mhm.
attorneys can step out and talk
Mhm.
to each other and be like, what can we do to get this done? And so I feel like a lot of that is lost. But now I try to work more on settlement offers to
Mhm.
try to supplement that or reach some agreements before we get to ADR so we can focus on the bigger issues that we need the mediator for.
Cool. Show me your tattoo. I saw a glimpse. Ooh, that's a big one. Okay, tell
Yeah.
us about the tattoo.
So it started with my daughter's names, like Taylor's right here, and then Abigail's over here. And then it just kind of grew from there. And now it's
Nice.
still growing.
I love it. So how old are your daughters now?
19 and 14.
Wow.
Yep. Freshman in
19
college.
and 14. You
Yeah.
don't look old enough to have children that age.
Well, thank you.
So one's
But
in college. How's that been?
it's been good. She's still at home. She's doing community college.
Mhm.
Um, it's been a transition for her, like learning to grow as an adult and
Mhm.
still living at
Mhm.
home.
Mhm.
But she's doing great. She has a career path and things she wants to do, and she's just knocking away at it.
Cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. What do you do for fun or in your downtime?
So my youngest daughter plays club soccer, so a lot of my free time is spent traveling for that.
Mhm.
And then we also all play soccer together. We play indoor. So yeah, we do that at least 2 times a week.
That's really impressive. It
It's
is.
super,
It's not easy. I played soccer for many, many years and then decided to kind of go out and pick it up as an adult and was shocked at the like the physical requirements of the sprinting and the kicking and the like it is a
oh,
hard, physically demanding sport.
yes.
So how do you stay in shape?
I do Orange Theory like 5 times a week.
All
So
right.
I
All right. So you're an
try to run.
athlete.
Yeah, we like to stay busy. Play pickleball. We're on a kickball league for fun. So we like to stay busy.
Oh my gosh. So Chris just told me he likes to play pickleball.
Oh, it's so
Me and
fun.
Chad like to play pickleball. Rachel likes to play pickleball. So we should definitely figure out a way to all play pickleball. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, there's Legacy out here by me, and they have a bazillion pickleball courts, and we did something at my gym with like members where everybody just came and did it for fun. We should do that with the firm.
Absolutely. That would be a great time. So what do you see your future career looking like?
I for now I just am content working with wonderful people that are all focused on family law and child related issues. You know, I would like to progress and learn more. And I love attending CLEs. I don't know that I would ever want to present one because I don't like speaking in public that much, but it would be great to collaborate with people on new issues that are coming up and do research and maybe change some legislation that we have.
Whoa. Okay, so while I've got you, couple pieces of pending legislation that I would love to pick your brain on. One
Hmm,
of them is a bill that would ban, and this was just signed, but I don't think it's into law yet, ban uh, reunification camps.
really?
Yes.
Wow.
So it bans the reunification camps, the transport of children over out of state or overnight, anything that involves private transport of children to a place, and anything that would limit the contact between the preferred parents and the children.
Wow.
What do you think about that?
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Oh,
As
as these reunification camps?
yeah,
Oh
no.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um
So I'm glad you said that because they are very controversial, but the fact is that modern law is almost 15 years old, and we have hundreds and hundreds of clients every single year, and not one single one of our clients has ever had a child that was shipped off to a reunification camp. It's come up in a few cases. There have been some talk about it. There's been some attempts, but it's never ever happened. So these things happen very, very rarely, but they do
yeah.
exist.
I mean, just hearing it for the first time, I would support the ban because I
Yeah.
don't think that that's necessarily good. If the child is having like relationship issues with the other parent, I don't think completely removing them from their safe spot and
Mhm.
their place of comfort and peace is necessarily good for that. I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done maybe as a whole and
Mhm.
to show that their supporting parent is supporting of that as well. But I don't think I would support that ban.
Yeah, yeah. Because you know what I do see actually happen to our clients. We have a client right now who was banned from seeing her child for 90 days. And that child, it just was a disaster. And the child wanted to be with mom. And then, the child did something and got punished. And then the judge extended the time, like just horrible. And I think that having that type of legislation will help really us to make arguments that that should not be the practice of the family court. The family court should not limit time between a preferred parent and a child, but they do have to figure out a way to somehow stop or encourage children to have healthy relationships with both parents. It's not easy.
Yeah, no, that sounds crazy. I didn't even know, like I said, I didn't know there were things like that. And I could see after the end of the 90 days that the child might then come back and have resentment or feel unsafe in the preferred parent's home if they're like, how did you let this happen? How did you make me, why didn't you stop it? So I feel like that just creates so many issues. And then the other legislation that I see that's moving through right now is the one that's allowing 15-year-olds to choose where they want to live. I feel like that just kind of exacerbates the issue too. Like there's got to be a reason why the child wants to live with one parent over the other or not have any time. So I don't, and the way I saw it written, and I could be wrong, is that they'll allow that child to choose. But what if there's all these other factors for why that's happening? What if the parent is alienating them from the other parent? Why? Like, there's just so much that goes into it. I don't like that law. I think that creates a slippery slope for people just, oh, let's wait till you're 15. Like, we'll build our case then. And it just, I don't like that. I like how it's set up now where it's a factor and the court gives it a little bit of weight, but not the entirety.
Right. So this bill, I'm going to actually pause this.
Okay.
Okay, so this House Bill 2642, they tried to pass last year and it got shot down at the highest level. And family court practitioners are generally opposed, and the public and the legislature is generally in favor of. And so I want to have a discussion about that. So the bill is sponsored by a state representative, and under the bill, a child who is at least 14 years old and is, quote, sufficiently mature so that a child can have an intelligently and voluntarily express a preference for one parent will have the legal right to choose which parent they want to live with. Now, can you talk about why, as a family law attorney, that makes us very uncomfortable?
There's just so much that goes into it. A 14-year-old can be very easily influenced. And I mean, just the language of the statute itself is very vague because it gives the child the right to choose, but then it doesn't say, well, what about any kind of visitation schedule? Is that saying that there's no parenting time to the other parent? What if the child is choosing that because they were negatively influenced by the other parent? There's just so many ways that this seems illogical or inoperable because it and there's also the fundamental right to parent. So how is a 14-year-old able to interfere with a person's fundamental right? So there's just so many unknowns.
Right, right. So what we learn about is just how awful conflict and loyalty binds are for children.
Mhm.
And loyalty binds are anything that asks a child to choose one parent over the other parent. It's just a terrible, terrible, terrible position to put a child in. And so
Yeah.
if this law exists, many, many parents will be telling their kids, you get to choose where you want to live. And it's a horrible position to place a child in. Um, as you said, it completely opens them up to manipulation. I'll buy you a car, I'll get you
Mhm.
an Xbox. Is that really best interest? But the
Yeah.
reason that people support this is because generally they feel like children and teens are not listened to enough.
Right. But I think that the way that the statute is crafted now, it allows the court to give the children that voice. And there are other processes through the family court that give children a voice. There's a child interview through conciliation services. There's court-appointed advisors where they interview children throughout the process. And then there's family evaluations and full custody evaluations that also give children a voice without sitting them down and being like, who do you want to live with? And
Right.
having that be part of the litigation. The processes that they have now seem to be more thorough. Some more than others, obviously, but at least it gives more of an opportunity to see the other factors that may be affecting the child's decision too.
Right. Right. It's a complex topic, and I understand how I understand why there would be a feeling that probably maybe not enough weight is given. People aren't listening close enough because teens, they have real feelings and real points of view that should be seriously considered.
Mhm.
And at the same time, they're only teens. They're kids. And when you lose one parent, that parent's ability to influence and pour in those resources of time and talents and perspectives, like, it, generally speaking, from a family law perspective, we see that as a real disservice. even though one parent might be more uncomfortable than another parent. And it's hard to know long term, and I'm sure it's case by case, what's the better outcome. It's a hard thing.
Right. And I think it doesn't address the root of the problem too. Like there has to be a reason why the child might prefer one parent over the other. And so in a perfect world, if one child were wanting to live with the parent should go to the other parent and say, what do you want to do about this? How should we work together to fix this? Maybe there should be counseling or something. And unfortunately, that's why we're
Yeah. Laura, do you really work in family law?
I know.
If
Those
if
cases
people
are
could work things out by themselves, we wouldn't have jobs.
right. So, yeah, I mean, it just, I think it just gives too much power to the children and too much room for manipulating the child too. And then it doesn't, then you have to build a case as to this fit parent as to why he should have parenting time and
Right.
all based on the child's wishes, but he or she is fit. There's nothing wrong. There's no drugs or alcohol abuse, no child abuse issues, but all of a sudden he or she doesn't get to have parenting time.
So you're seeing
So
this as really hurting fathers.
primarily, I think, but I can go either way.
It can.
I think it's just, I don't know why I keep saying he, because I've seen it happen with moms too. It's just more for some children are more wanting to be with the family. So
Can you give our listeners a example of a case that you've worked on with teens, with complex dynamics, and where simply listening to a kiddo may not be the best thing?
um, yeah, I had a case and there were two teenage daughters. One parent preferred them, or one child preferred the mom, the other child preferred the dad. And the parents were such high conflict that they were each influencing the child that preferred them. And so then they were then trying to use that preferential to say, well, I should have both because this one is choosing me. And the other parent was saying the same thing. And it created this whole mess that went on for over 2 years. Child ran away. One of them was admitted to mental health hospitals. So it when you give the children that kind of power, I think it creates this sense of entitlement that they're going to do whatever they want to do. And it doesn't address the root of the problem. Why didn't the other parent, why was the one daughter not wanting to be with the father? Why was the other daughter not wanting to be with the mother? And instead of addressing that, the court is trying to, or with this bill, it could give them, okay, well, you don't get any parenting time because they're going to choose you and this one chooses them. And it didn't address the issue.
Right.
So,
It makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
I'm divorced and I have 4 kids, and we have 50-50, and we have incredibly different styles, very
Mhm.
different styles. We're both competent, fit parents, but we do things differently. And
Right.
there's something really freeing to our children to know that each of us is going to say, at the end of the week, it's your dad's time or it's your mom's time. And it doesn't really matter if you complain about, whatever the style is, or even if you prefer one style to the other. And when you have that order that both parents kind of respect, it really creates kind of peace and security for children who don't have to think about it. What you're describing is children who are put in a position where week after week they're lobbied by their parents to
Mhm.
have a preference. And yes, I can see how it would land children in a mental hospital. I really can.
Yeah. And it can start young too. A case that I just recently had, the child began having separation anxiety from mom during COVID. And the mom fed into it a
Mm-hmm.
little too much and
Mm-hmm.
created this preferential treatment. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with dad.
Mm-hmm.
He just wanted his parenting time, so he was
Mm-hmm.
trying to force it.
Mm-hmm.
And so because they weren't, it was almost a case of not encouraging the other one's time. And so then the child just began to know that he can just throw a fit and mom's not going to make him go.
Right.
So yeah, it really takes holding people accountable to the court orders, making sure they're enforcing them. If mom's not, or if mom or dad isn't following the order, then you need to nip it in the bud as soon as you can. Don't let it drag on because then it just gets harder to undo that.
Absolutely. Like if you are experiencing any alienation, the only thing you can do is intervene early and often
Mhm.
and stick to your court order. But people don't know just how important that is. But if this starts at 5, 6, 7, man, it can be a real disaster later. And if this bill passes, if it goes into a law, it's not that parents are going to start lobbying at 14. Parents are going to start lobbying at 9, at 10, at 11.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll probably have more work, but we don't enjoy watching families suffer. We really don't.
Yeah, I mean, modifications are probably my least favorite type of case because they are so difficult. And it's not necessarily that one parent's wrong or worse or not fit or anything like that. And a lot of times they're just trying to do what they think their kids want. Um, and so it's like this will create, I feel like, a huge influx of modification cases. And then we're going to have to be arguing the caveats for countering why the child's wishes shouldn't be followed. So then we're going to have to dig in further. Like it almost shifts the burden
Mm-hmm.
to the fit parent that's losing their time to show why that's not okay when
Mm-hmm.
it should be the reverse.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. Or at least that's our norm now. You know, we went from a time when there was a primary parent. That was the
mm,
default. There was a primary parent and an every other weekend parent. And then for the last at least 10 years, maybe 15, we've been in an era of a preference for equal parenting time. And it would be interesting to see if that's only a season.
yeah, it might revert back. I know there's still states that where that's kind of the common theme. I'm from Michigan, and when my oldest daughter was born, like that was just the default. And I think it's still, I mean, it might have changed now, but like the last 10 years, I was still hearing that it was like every other weekend for dads. Like there was no talk of equal. And then when we moved out here, my youngest daughter's dad and I was just equal. There's no reason not to have equal. You live 2 miles down the road from me, like of course. So
Well, and
yeah,
I think it's really nice for both parents. You know, we don't have a winner and a loser. We have two parents.
exactly. Yeah.
And kids don't have, a more parent than, both parents are equal. So when you can do it, it's really great. Although, of course, it doesn't always work out that way. The other
Yeah.
question I want to ask you about is the new spousal maintenance guidelines. That is a huge change in the law that's happened in the last year. What are your thoughts on it?
I I have mixed feelings about it. I like them for some respects because I feel like it's more uh appropriate and applicable to like middle to lower income families that where they do qualify for spousal maintenance, but we need some kind of guideline for it and just plug in the numbers and this is what it is. I think for higher earning incomes or maybe cases one that we've worked on together recently, um, it it can kind of hurt a case too when the assets aren't necessarily income driven, but they
Mhm.
still have a big portfolio. It can I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost hurting this one case that I have. So I'm having to then argue for the deviation, which is very difficult to argue for. So
So you feel like
I
in some cases it is less fair than in others?
yes. Yeah, I think for a lot of cases, it's easy. Like you put it in like child support worksheet. These are what the numbers are. This is what we have to work with. But for some cases, it's like, yes, that is what his income is. But in reality, he has this much at his disposal that he can be attributed with for income purposes or that he should be. So then we have to go through and argue for a deviation
Hmm.
when these people have millions of dollars and
Hmm.
she's entitled to $2,000 a month in
Hmm.
spousal maintenance. So
Hmm.
it seems a little lopsided in some respects, but yeah, it's tricky, just
It's
figuring out
tricky.
how
I
to.
mean, anytime you have high income individuals with lots of assets, money always gets real funny.
Mhm.
If you've got business owners or you've got people who are super high asset, all of a sudden figuring out what income goes in the child support calculator is not easy. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
argument and there's deductions. And then those cases are harder because there's a lot of room for advocacy.
Right. Yeah. I think, yeah. And the great part about the firm is that we have Megan, a
Mhm.
financial guru, I call her, so that way she can help with all the numbers aspects and seeing how we can get the most favorable outcome for the client. So she has been very helpful for me in these types of cases, just because she can see it from the financial point of view. She can run the numbers, see things that I might not have seen, and help us get the best outcome for the client.
So Laura is referring to our on-site forensic accountant and certified divorce financial analyst. She acts as a consultant on a lot of our cases. And what's really great is she has training in forensic accounting and in financial analysis, and she's at a lower rate than many of us as divorce attorneys. So it's a
Mhm.
real service to the client to have somebody who's actually a financial professional weighing in on that and then educating the attorney or collaborating with the attorney to get better outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been very helpful. And she's helped on other cases where we're trying to do enforcement actions and look at quadros and division of accounts and things like that. So she's been a great resource to have.
Well, Laura, I've kept you longer than we were scheduled. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a great conversation, and I enjoyed learning more about your fun activities. We need to do some of that, not soccer, but I would pickleball with you.
Yeah, pickleball.
Yeah. So thank you so much and have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Did you enjoy the discussion? If you loved getting to know the team member we highlighted, why not take the next step? Feel free to book a meeting with them using the link in the description box below. We'd love to connect with you.